It's time for the Ruffin Wrestling Show. Here's your host, Michael Ruffin.
You're soft, you slop.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ruffin Wrestling Show. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. I finally got around to watching NXT and the Cruiserweight Classic, but I've decided that I wasn't going to do a show just based off of this, because with NXT, there was only one thing to really talk about, and that was Shinsuke Nakamura versus Finn Balor. They took like half of the show. Pretty much NXT all last week was just pretty much a Samoa Joe promo, and then Shinsuke versus Finn Balor. I thought it was a great match with a lot of great back and forth. Some people online, some of the other smart marks like myself, are giving Shinsuke Nakamura a bunch of shit for not selling. But that's WWE. That's WWE. That's just how WWE works. If you watch any match in WWE, you always see that. You know, a guy gets worked on their leg or their knee or their arm or whatever body part gets worked on because it's hurt, or, you know, they kind of mess it up, or they, you know, twist it, or, you know, whatever, you know, and they sell for a little while and then they stop. And that's just WWE. And Shinsuke Nakamura is adapting to a new style. Not to say he's adapting away from like strong style. He's adapting to the WWE way of working a match. And that is just that you only kind of sell. It sucks, but it's just how it is. And so he worked just as much as he should have, and sold the leg just as much as he should have by WWE standards. Essentially, he was par for the course for the match. Finn, same way. You know, they worked a fantastic match. Easily one of the top matches. When you talk about top matches in NXT, you talk about Sami Zayn versus Antonio Cesaro, best 2 out of 3. The Neville and Bo Dallas ladder match for the NXT Championship. Bayley and Sasha in Brooklyn. Bayley and Sasha, the Iron Woman match. That's what you talk about. You can put that match up there easily in the top 5 best NXT matches of all time. Do I think that they maybe will do it again at TakeOver? No, because I think Shinsuke Nakamura's next opponent, his next feud, is going to be a program with Samoa Joe for the NXT Championship, because I honestly think that he, in the short amount of time he's been there, I mean, he's only been there since TakeOver Dallas, right, the night before WrestleMania, or 2 nights before WrestleMania, so he's earned that spot really quickly. There's really nobody else in NXT right now that is up there with Shinsuke Nakamura, level-wise. Austin Aries is close, but Nakamura has earned that spot, and he's going to take that spot pretty quick. I think we'll see Samoa Joe versus versus Shinsuke Nakamura at TakeOver Brooklyn 2. I think that's just how that goes down. And they have had NXT tapings since last week. I do not know what happened. I don't read the spoilers because I like to be surprised, I guess, and I like to not know what's going on when I watch NXT every week. So I try not to read anything. Obviously, things get out and whatnot. We're going to talk about that in the rumor roundup here in just a minute. We'll talk about the Cruiserweight Classic for a second. I love the Cruiserweight Classic. I had a really good time watching it. I've not heard of probably 28 out of these 32 guys, and that's because, I'm really still kind of new to watching anything outside of WWE, watching anything in New Japan, AAA, Lucha Underground, which there's no Lucha Underground guys in this thing because they wouldn't release them to do it because they thought about trying to get Ricochet. Although I don't think Ricochet is 205, so he might be. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure. The person I weirdly wish they had gotten is Will Ospreay. That dude's blowing up, man. That kid's just... he's blowing up all over the place. I don't know if you guys saw the video, but Paul Heyman offered Will Ospreay a contract to Evolve whenever he's ready. I think Will Ospreay would be such a good Paul Heyman guy if he ever makes it to the WWE, and Paul's still hanging around. But I loved the Cruiserweight Classic. There was a lot of cool spots that you don't see in normal WWE matches. I really felt that it was shot differently, too. It's not shot like typical WWE television. Like the first match, Charles Robinson has him come in, and he explains rules to him. He makes him shake hands. It's very honorable. It's very different. It's very more competitive, more competition battle style than typical WWE storyline television. This is a different thing. It's filmed at Full Sail, but they don't enter from the ramp. They actually enter on the sides of the ramp, and it looks like they've expanded the seating a little bit as well to get a little bit more people in there. I'm gonna have to try and see if I can finagle some tickets to the Cruiserweight Classic tapings. I'd really like to check one of those out live. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But let's get to the rumor roundup, the Ruffin Rumor Roundup. Of course, as I always say, these are rumors. Some of this is news, but some of this is rumor. So take these with a grain of salt. It's just a lot of fun to speculate, kind of see what's being tossed around and kicked around out there, what could possibly be true. It's just fun to talk about things like that. First up is that Brock Lesnar likely made upwards of $8 million for his fight against Mark Hunt at UFC 200. A little bit of news about Brock Lesnar, if you've not heard, he got flagged for a anti-doping violation, but from what I have heard, it was not for a PED. It was just for something that was in his system, because these tests like these guys take, it picks up everything in your system down to like ibuprofen. So if you're on any type of medication for anything, like it might have been something he still takes for his diverticulitis. I don't know if he still takes medication for that or anything, but I mean, this guy could have had a headache 3 days before his test, took 2 Tylenol, and if he doesn't put down on that piece of paper that he took Tylenol, it can show up and it can flag. Essentially, you get, from what I understand, you get flagged for anything in your system that you don't disclose. So if you don't tell them, oh, I'm taking this supplement, or I'm taking this vitamin, or I took this medicine, or I'm on this prescription, if you don't tell them these things, it comes up in the test and you get flagged. Mark Hunt apparently has been, I haven't really gone and looked, I've seen a few things, but apparently he's been very vocal on social media about Brock getting flagged for the doping violation, and is demanding equal pay for the match, or that he wants to be released from his UFC contract. He's kind of throwing a tantrum about it. I just sit down. This is Brock. Brock doesn't take PEDs. At least I hope not. I don't think that's what it is, and I don't think it's going to affect the upcoming match with Randy Orton at SummerSlam. Apparently WWE is starting to develop a backup plan just in case it is something more serious. But I seriously doubt that it's going to be anything like that. One of the biggest rumors out there right now is that Daniel Bryan is rumored to be the general manager for SmackDown, and it'll be announced on Raw, what now will be tomorrow night. I would love that. I think Daniel Bryan would be a great addition to SmackDown. I think they're really trying to push for SmackDown viewership to really blow up and start matching, if not beating Raw at times. I think that's what Vince is really looking for. He's kind of looking for a Monday Night Wars Part 2, where you've got Monday and Tuesday night battling each other, Steph and Shane going up against each other, and it's for rating supremacy, and I think that's what they're trying to do with SmackDown, and I'm hoping that the draft goes where, I'm still thinking that a lot of these new era guys are going to go to SmackDown, and they're going to make SmackDown, remember back when Paul Heyman had SmackDown, and SmackDown was like the must-see television show, like you could miss Raw, but you didn't dare miss SmackDown? I think that's what they're going back towards. I think they're trying to make SmackDown the show that you do not wait to watch. You go and you watch it live, and you don't just read about it online, which is, to be fair, something that I've done for SmackDown for quite a while. I'll watch it when I can, but I never went out and looked for it unless something happened that I really wanted to see, or there was a match that they actually had for once that actually excited me. I used to go and read the results online, and just that was it. That's why you guys never see me really do a SmackDown recap unless I've actually watched the show. So you can go back and look at the show. I think I've done one SmackDown recap, and that's it, because I usually don't watch it. Of course, starting Tuesday, I'm going to be watching SmackDown all the time because it's live, and I want to see what they do. I want to see the different things here. And speaking of talking about the SmackDown going live, we're going to probably talk about that quite a bit here during the rumor roundup, because it is the hot ticket thing right now. We're going to talk about that quite a bit, I think. WWE is all about promoting this. I've been watching USA all weekend because they were showing some cool movies, and they have been promoting SmackDown. left and right, pretty much an ad every other commercial break, and pretty much been graphics up on the screen constantly. They've really been pushing this, and USA, from what I understand, USA was the one that was really vocal in SmackDown's ratings getting up, because they brought it over from Sci-Fi thinking that would get the ratings up, and they haven't. They haven't really changed since they came from Sci-Fi. USA was upset about it. That's why SmackDown had to get a change. That's why they're going live. Probably while they're doing the brand split. I think that's something that WWE came up with, keep it fresh. But they have been all about this, promoting it, and they could be doing something crazy on Monday Night Raw, and they could have rumored that Dean Ambrose could possibly drop the WWE Championship to Seth Rollins, because Dean Ambrose may not stay on Raw, and Rollins is going to stay on Raw, and that's where they want to keep that championship at. They could obviously change this from Monday Night Raw to Battleground, which, of course, is the return of Roman Reigns, but I don't know if that's how they'll go with it. I think the better plan is, if you're going to take it off of Dean, which I think is a bad idea to begin with, but if you want to take Dean to SmackDown and you need to free up that title, I say you do it on Raw. Because I think a lot of people, with it being the go-home show to Battleground, are going to think this title's not going to change hands. It'll be a huge shock. It'll be a nice swerve. And for people that didn't watch Raw, it'll really make people go, damn, I really should have watched Raw. And it'll also set up well, if that happened on Raw, then I better watch SmackDown. So I think that would be the smartest move if they're going to take it off of Dean Ambrose. Just my opinion, but, of course, that's what all this show is. Something that has been kicking around some dust on the interwebs is Eric Bischoff kicked around a little dust about possibly returning to WWE, but apparently this is just a bunch of speculation, and there is no truth to it at all. That Eric Bischoff is not, I guess, going to be returning to WWE anytime soon. Apparently, going back to Brock Lesnar, he was asked again about his returning to UFC, and apparently he's had a complete change of heart since his interview before, I think it was WrestleMania, wasn't it, where he said he was done with UFC, he wasn't going to go back. But apparently he is more open to returning to UFC instead of committing any longer to WWE on a full-time, I guess what Brock calls a full-time schedule. I think that's fine. I talked about this on a previous show where I said the best plan for business is to have Brock split his time between UFC and WWE. He already works part-time. He works like 4 dates a year in WWE. He could work 3 dates or 4 dates a year in UFC, make more money, but you got to change his contract to a play to get paid mode, where if he is booked to have a match in WWE and say he gets a concussion or breaks his leg or his arm or something happens in a UFC fight and he's not there, then he doesn't get paid his full purse. That is, maybe not, Brock won't like that idea, but if you're thinking, if he's off making $8 million to fight at UFC 200, let's say he makes half of that on a regular fight at, UFC 211, he's, whatever, then, that's good money for Brock. He's going to make something like that with WWE as well. Maybe not that per date, but he'll make that, annually maybe from WWE. But you work part-time between the two, and if you get hurt, then you just don't get paid your full amount owed to you. That's, just kind of how you do that. Personally, that's just my opinion about that. In the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, something that I read too, I highly suggest you subscribe to it. F4W Online, Wrestling Observer, great radio shows. Brian Alvarez, Mike Sempervive, Dave Meltzer, all those guys, great shows. I listen to them I try to listen every day, but I usually get around to listening probably about 4 times a week, 3 or 4 times a week, but I love it. I read the Wrestling Observer, but according to the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Shane McMahon apparently has been telling his friends he doesn't know how much longer he will be on television with WWE. I think that probably has some merit to it, probably has some truth, because if Shane is going to be the commissioner of SmackDown, he doesn't need to be on television every single week. If you've got somebody like Daniel Bryan, you can put Daniel Bryan on TV every week, every other week, whatever you got to do, and then you Shane comes on every once in a while. That really needs to be what that is. Stephanie, same thing on Raw. As long as Stephanie's got a good general manager, Paul Heyman, that's my pick, I think. I would love to see Paul be the general manager of Raw. I think he'd be great. If you've got somebody great on Raw, then Stephanie doesn't need to be on television as well. That just makes sense. That's why you have that general manager. So when the commissioner comes, it's going to be like the old days, back in the 80s, when the champion wasn't always there. Champion didn't show up at every television. He didn't show up at every house show. When the champ was there, big fucking deal. It was a huge deal. So I think that's the thing with the commissioner. It's kind of like when Vince shows up on television. If Vince is there, something's going down. Something is going to possibly happen. If you get the commissioners to do that same type of role, it makes it exciting when we see Shane and when we see Stephanie. That's just good television. Reportedly, John Cena since he's doing more and more on outside of WWE, because he should be, he may no longer be considered as the guy who can carry SmackDown, and he may stay on Raw. I think that's fine, just because he's John Cena, of course. It doesn't matter if he's the champion or not. He is a face of WWE. You see John Cena and you think WWE. The guy sells a shit ton of merch. He draws people, and so it doesn't matter. If he doesn't go to SmackDown, I don't think that matters. He possibly doesn't need to. He can stay on Raw and still do fine, and you can still do a lot of great things with him. Of course, if you're going to put, AJ Styles, say, on SmackDown, well, that kind of ruins # beat up John Cena, but, who knows. Vince McMahon apparently is very upset at Roman Reigns for his failed drug test, and will so likely play into the decision made in the WWE draft. I think that Roman will stay on Raw. I think Roman will come back as a heel because he's going to get booed even more than he was before, because now the families have seen Roman. He's made a mistake, and he came out and he was clean about his mistake. He was honest about his mistake. And I think, hey, everybody screws up. Everybody makes mistakes. He made a mistake, and that's okay. It happens. But apparently Vince is very soured on him, and he will may possibly stay on Raw, but he may be pushed down and kind of taken out of any title pictures for a little while until he earns his spot back, which I think is fine, especially if you bring him back heel. If you bring him back as the bad guy, not to rain on anything of Razor Ramon, but if you bring him back and let him be a heel, I think it's going to be great, because people will boo him already, and, it just makes sense. Also, again, according to Wrestling Observer, some major names may have been juggled in recent weeks in regards to the WWE draft. I don't think WWE knows, even right now, how they're going to do this draft. I honestly think it's going to be like how they do the Royal Rumble, where number 1 and number 30 are decided, but numbers 2 through 29, they're all waiting in the back, and Vince decides as we go and has how things are being played out, and just kind of plays to the moment of the Royal Rumble. So I think that's how the draft's going to go. I think there will be some set names that will be going to each show, but I think that as the show goes on, some audibles are going to get called, and some guys may go to somebody might go to SmackDown who they were thinking about was going to stay on Raw, and then vice versa. Somebody might go to Raw who was going to be on SmackDown. I think that's just, I think that's how Vince works. Vince calls audibles during the show, and he's going to do that he's going to do that during this as well. It's just how it's going to be. According to Wrestling Observer, again, there may have been some talks between Ring of Honor and Cody Rhodes. He may show up in that promotion at some point. Good for him, man. I think that'd be great. Cody Rhodes is awesome. Cody Rhodes is a wrestler that WWE, in like a year or two, that guy's going to go on. He's going to go on to Evolve or Ring of Honor, or maybe even New Japan, and he's going to make a huge name for himself. He's going to be a massive star. He's going to go off and kind of do like Drew Galloway, or AKA Drew McIntyre did, where WWE cut him because, well, he was in 3MB and they had nothing to do with Jinder Mahal or Drew McIntyre, so they released them. And then Drew Galloway, went off and just blew the fuck up, man. He had like 5 titles at a time. The dude was a monster, and he's still doing good. I think he just got crowned the tag team champions with Chuck Taylor. So, that's the same thing with Cody Rhodes. He's going to go off and he's going to do what he does. He's got the blood of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, baby. He's going to go off and do something awesome. And I'm telling you, in a year, Vince is going to be trying to get him back because he's sitting off, in his office, kicking himself in the ass for not letting Cody ditch Stardust and do something new and do something better for Cody. Back to Brock Lesnar again. I know we keep going back to Brock. Despite the news that he failed the drug test, he has not been suspended by WWE, and he was not scheduled, nor was Paul Heyman scheduled to be at the WWE draft show. Maybe that ruins the guess that it could be Paul Heyman GMing on Raw, because I think obviously the GMs are going to have a huge role on the draft show, but hopefully that's just a bit of gossip and maybe we will see Paul at least. I just really hope that Paul is the GM for Raw. For some reason, I have a feeling it's going to be Kane, and that's terrible. That's terrible. And Glenn Jacobs is great. He's super smart. Dude's like the smartest WWE superstar. And like apparently he has like a booming insurance company, like ran for Senate. Like the dude's a huge deal. But, as speaking, which is for Kane character wise on television, nobody wants to see that. Nobody cares about that. I think somebody like Paul Heyman is the way to go. But that's just, that's just how I say. But that is your rumor roundup for the week. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow night to talk about Raw, and then we'll be back Tuesday night to talk about whatever the hell happens in this draft. Man, who knows where things are going? Man, who has an idea? You know what? Nobody, because even I'm telling you, Vince McMahon doesn't even know what he's doing right now. But thank you guys for tuning in. If you have not subscribed to the show, you can do so on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube. You can go on all three of those and subscribe. That'd be the best way. Show finds you. You don't have to come looking for the show. But until then, till tomorrow night, see ya.